Okay, let's just dive right into this. Have you ever heard that persistent fitness rumor that simply drinking a cup of coffee before your workout can magically help you burn more body fat? Well, today, we're breaking down the actual hardcore science behind this incredibly popular claim. In this explainer, we're unpacking a fascinating and highly meticulous systematic review and meta-analysis that was published in the scientific journal Nutrients. It literally cuts through decades of conflicting advice, marketing hype, and gym bro science to reveal the scientifically correct caffeine protocol to genuinely boost fat loss. If you've been putting in all that hard work, grinding away at the gym, but you're just not seeing the fat melt off the way you want, well, this breakdown is exactly what you need. Let's get focused and find out exactly how this physiological mechanism actually works. You know, working hard but just not losing the fat? I think we've all been there at some point, right? And honestly, it's incredibly frustrating. You're logging endless miles on the treadmill, you're sweating it out on the spin bike, but that stubborn body fat just will not budge. Now, for years, the fitness industry has buzzed about using caffeine as a pre-workout fat burner. But for the longest time, the research was completely all over the place. I mean, some people swore it worked absolute miracles, while skeptics argued that it simply made you jittery, so maybe you just accidentally trained a little harder. People were left wondering, is this just a psychological placebo effect, or is there a genuine physical shift in how your body decides to burn its fuel? Well, let's see how a brilliant team of researchers finally solved this mystery once and for all. So the reason the past data was so incredibly contradictory is that older studies were kind of a mess. They had completely different rules. Some studies let participants drink sugar drinks with their coffee, others tested totally different exercise intensities, and some didn't monitor the participants' diets at all. It was comparing apples to oranges. To eliminate all that background noise, these researchers sifted through hundreds of papers and ruthlessly narrowed it down to just 19 extremely high-quality, rigorous studies. They only looked at trials where the exercise intensity was strictly controlled, where pure caffeine was compared perfectly against a placebo, and, this is key, where a strict fasting period was enforced beforehand. By filtering out all the bad data, they finally gave us the most reliable, undeniable look at what caffeine actually does to our fat cells. Okay, so what did they actually find? Well, the findings are honestly a massive statistically significant win for caffeine. The core discovery here is that taking caffeine before exercise actively and significantly increases your fat oxidation rate. And here's the absolutely crucial point. This isn't just happening because the caffeine woke you up and gave you the energy to run faster. Remember, these studies locked the exercise intensity at the exact same level for both the caffeine group and the placebo group. Meaning, at the exact same physical workload, the same speed, the same resistance, caffeine physically shifts your body's internal engine to prefer burning fat over other fuel sources. It's an absolute game changer. To really wrap our heads around how this works on a biological level, we need to talk about the body's internal fuel gauge. In science, this is known as the respiratory exchange ratio, or RER. Think of RER as a slider switch inside your metabolism. When the number is higher, your body is predominantly burning carbohydrates for quick energy. But when that number drops lower, your body switches tracks and starts tapping into stored fat. What this comprehensive meta-analysis showed unequivocally is that caffeine successfully lowers the RER during exercise. It acts like a master switch, literally telling your body, hey, let's save those precious carbohydrates and instead unlock that stored body fat and prioritize it as our main source of fuel. But wait, because there's another super fascinating piece to this physiological puzzle. The researchers also found a measurable increase in overall oxygen uptake, or VO2, during the exercise. Why does that matter for weight loss? Well, burning fat is a highly oxygen-intensive process. It literally requires significantly more oxygen to break down a molecule of fat than it does to break down a carbohydrate. So by naturally increasing your oxygen uptake, caffeine is essentially opening up all the air vents in your metabolic furnace. It's providing your body with the abundant, rushing oxygen it requires to fuel this accelerated fat-burning process. It perfectly sets up the optimal internal environment for fat loss. Now, before you go chugging a massive, sugary, iced caramel latte, we seriously need to talk about the villain of our story here, insulin. The science on this is incredibly clear and very strict. If you consume carbohydrates, and I mean anything like a piece of toast, a banana, or a sweetened coffee drink before your workout, your blood sugar rises and your body immediately releases insulin. Insulin is a storage hormone. Its primary job is to pack energy away into your cells, not burn it. So the exact moment insulin enters your bloodstream, it instantly shuts down that beautiful fat oxidation process we just talked about. It completely overrides the benefits of the caffeine. It is literally like pressing the brake pedal and the gas pedal at the exact same time. Your body just gets confused. Because of that powerful insulin response, the biggest takeaway here is this: to keep your insulin levels completely flat and unlock caffeine's true fat-burning power, a fasting period is absolutely mandatory. The research shows that a strict fast of at least 5 hours prior to your exercise is required. Not 2 hours, not 3, 5. Many of the most successful protocols in the meta-analysis actually had participants fast overnight. So practically speaking, if you are an early morning exerciser, waking up and working out before breakfast is the absolute perfect frictionless scenario for this caffeine protocol. If you prefer to work out in the afternoon, you really have to ensure you haven't eaten any calories, especially carbs, for a solid 5 hours beforehand, or honestly, this hack simply will not work. Let's move on to something really surprising from the data. Who actually benefits the most from all this? You might naturally assume that elite, highly trained athletes get the biggest boost from sports supplements, right? But let's look at the comparison between highly trained athletes and beginners or sedentary people who are just starting out on their fitness journey. Do their bodies react the exact same way to the caffeine? The answer is a resounding no. And the truth here is actually incredibly encouraging for the average everyday person. The data shows a really stark contrast based on physical activity levels. For highly trained endurance athletes, the extra fat-burning effect of caffeine was actually quite small. In fact, it was statistically insignificant. Why? Well, because elite athletes already have highly optimized metabolisms. Their bodies are already elite fat-burning machines without any help. But for sedentary, untrained individuals, the beginners, the fat loss benefits were dramatic. Think about it. If you were just starting to exercise to lose weight, your body isn't very efficient at burning fat yet. That means you have the absolute most to gain here. For beginners, caffeine acts like a massive set of training wheels for your metabolism, forcing it to burn fat at a rate it normally couldn't achieve on its own. Okay, so we know it works, and we know it works incredibly well for beginners in a fasted state. But how much caffeine do you actually need? I have to be completely blunt here. Taking a random quick sip of coffee from your travel mug on the way to the gym is not going to cut it. To trigger this metabolic switch, you have to hit a very specific biological threshold. Let's dig into the math, because getting the dosage exactly right is everything for this to be effective. The dose-response relationship discovered in the research breaks down into 3 very clear tiers. First, taking 3.0 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight or less showed absolutely no statistically significant fat-burning effect. It's simply not enough stimulation to flip the metabolic switch. Now, the magic happens in the middle tier, between 3.1 and 5.9 milligrams per kilogram. This is your optimal sweet spot. It provides a massive boost to fat oxidation while keeping your body safe. But look at that third tier. Anything 6.0 milligrams or higher does technically maximize fat burn, but it pushes your body right into a very real danger zone. I really want to slow down and emphasize this point, because more is definitely not always better. Exceeding that 6.0 milligrams per kilogram threshold introduces severe health risks that are completely counterproductive to your fitness goals. The studies clearly note that at these high doses, participants experienced abnormal and dangerous heart rate spikes, intense anxiety, severe jitters, and awful gastrointestinal distress. It can make you feel incredibly sick, completely ruining your workout, and frankly, putting your physical health at serious risk. Please, do not treat caffeine like a harmless candy, where you can just casually double the scoop to get faster results. You absolutely must stay strictly within that middle sweet spot. To make this incredibly easy and practical for you, let's run a quick simulation based on target ranges mapped out by body weight so you don't have to pause and do the mental math yourself. For example, if you weigh around 60 kilograms, your ideal dose falls right between 186 and 354 milligrams of caffeine. If you're closer to 80 kilograms, you're looking at roughly 248 to 472 milligrams. Now, for some context, an average standard cup of brewed coffee has about 100 milligrams of caffeine in it. So for that 60-kilo person, you are looking at roughly 2 to 3 standard cups of coffee. By figuring out your specific range, you can precisely dial in the optimal amount to trigger fat loss without ever crossing into that dangerous territory we just talked about. So now that you have your perfect dose calculated, when exactly do you drink it? The magic number here is 60 minutes. Pharmacokinetics, which is really just the scientific term for how drugs move through and are absorbed by the body, shows us that when you ingest caffeine orally, it takes time for your GI tract to process it and for it to fully peak in your bloodstream. The research protocols consistently showed that taking the caffeine between 30 and 75 minutes pre-workout was ideal, with exactly 60 minutes being the ultimate undisputed timing sweet spot. You drink your dose, you wait exactly an hour, and then you start sweating. So how do we actually apply this seamlessly to our everyday lives? When you're making your daily coffee choices to fit this protocol, the rules are strict but very simple to follow. First, you must drink it black. I literally cannot stress this enough. Absolutely zero sugar, zero fancy syrups, and zero milk. Remember that insulin mechanism we discussed earlier? Even a tiny splash of milk contains natural milk sugars that will instantly trigger an insulin spike, completely ruining the fat-burning effect you just perfectly set up. As long as it is pure black coffee, it honestly doesn't matter if you prefer it hot or iced, both work perfectly. You can also use pure caffeine pills if you prefer a more precise clinical approach, but honestly, pure black coffee is the most accessible, everyday way for most of us to utilize this science. Now, before we wrap things up, we need a quick reality check and a crucial disclaimer. This protocol is based on rigorous scientific averages, but human bodies are highly unique. This does not guarantee guaranteed weight loss results for every single individual out there. And more importantly, caffeine is a very powerful stimulant. You must always consult a medical professional before altering your diet or taking new supplements, especially when we are talking about calculating higher performance level caffeine doses. If you have any heart conditions, blood pressure issues, or you're just sensitive to caffeine, please talk to your doctor first. Your safety and well-being are always paramount, okay? Okay, let's bring all this incredible science together into a game plan. Here's your actionable chronological checklist that you can use immediately to prepare for your very next workout. Step 1. Ensure you have fasted for at least 5 hours to keep your insulin levels completely flat. Again, doing this first thing in the morning is by far the easiest method. Step 2. Drink your specific weight-based dose of pure black coffee, aiming carefully for that 3.1 to 5.9 milligram per kilogram sweet spot. Step 3. Look at the clock and wait exactly 60 minutes for the caffeine to fully peak in your bloodstream. Step 4. Start your submaximal cardio workout, knowing confidently that your body is now chemically primed to prioritize burning stubborn fat. It's truly amazing how just a little bit of targeted scientific knowledge can completely transform the effort we put in at the gym, isn't it? Especially if you are a beginner just starting out, this simple, zero-cost adjustment could be the exact physiological catalyst you need to finally see the results you've been working so incredibly hard for. So I'll leave you with this final provocative question. What is in your pre-workout cup right now? Are you going to keep winging it and hoping for the best? Or are you going to use the scientifically validated protocol we just explained? Take control of your metabolism, prioritize your safety, and absolutely optimize your next workout. Thanks for joining this explainer, and keep staying curious out there.